My name is Leah Morgan. I'm 34 years old and I work as a CPA in Chicago. All my life, I believe two things: that family never turns their back on you, and that money can bring people closer together. But in a single morning, both of those beliefs were shattered. $25,000, every cent I had carefully saved over the years, vanished in an instant. I had spent an entire month planning the perfect family vacation to Las Vegas, booking flights, reserving hotels, building a day-by-day itinerary. I wanted everything to be perfect for my parents, my brother, and his wife, because I truly believed this trip would help us rebuild the bond that had slowly faded over the years. I pictured us laughing together over slot machines, sharing dinners under neon lights, and creating memories that would last a lifetime. But when I arrived at the airport, heart racing with excitement, my phone buzzed with a message from my mom. "We all voted that you should stay." My hands started trembling. My stomach felt like it was collapsing. Through the thick terminal glass, I watched them walk toward the first-class gate. Not one of them even glanced back. The boarding pass in my hand suddenly felt meaningless. I stood there surrounded by a sea of strangers, completely alone and excluded from the trip I had paid for. They didn't just abandon me, they erased me from something I had poured my money, time, and heart into. I could have screamed. I could have cried. I could have run down the jetway after them, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and started planning something new, something that would make them regret ever sending that message. 1 week later, their lives began to crumble piece by piece, and I was just getting started. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me what time it is and which city you're watching from. I truly want to know how far this story has reached. 6 weeks before the chaos, my desk was buried in budgets. As a CPA, I'm used to taming numbers, but planning a family trip to Las Vegas felt like wrestling a storm. I booked 5 round-trip tickets, reserved 2 suites at Caesar's Palace, and covered every cost. $25,000 drained from my savings. Late nights became routine, my laptop glowing as I cross-checked flight schedules, hotel rates, and restaurant bookings. I called the airline twice to confirm seats, haggled with the hotel for a group discount, and even prepaid for airport transfers. My mom, Joyce, rang almost daily, her voice bright with talk of family bonding. But every call pivoted to my brother Owen, her pride in his car sales job spilling over. "He's been working so hard," she'd say then. "Push for extras, a Grand Canyon helicopter tour for $3,000, a Cirque du Soleil show for $2,000 more." I wired the money, my throat tight, each transfer feeling like a small betrayal of my own budget. Owen had a history of empty promises, like the $10,000 he borrowed from me 2 years ago for a used Mustang. I still remember him leaning against my kitchen counter, flashing that salesman smile. "I'll pay you back next month," he said. 2 years later, my account was still waiting. He'd borrowed smaller amounts before: $500 for a phone repair, $200 for a suit, always with a grin and no follow-through. I didn't push, holding on to the dream of this trip healing our fractured family. My dad, Mark, stayed on the sidelines, offering vague nods when Joyce demanded a spa package for $1,500. I added it to the tab, my savings dwindling faster than I could track. One evening, Marissa, Owen's wife, sent a text. "First-class seats would make this trip unforgettable. Don't you think we deserve it?" I stared at my laptop, my savings account flashing red. I wanted to say no, but visions of us laughing over slot machines kept me typing. "Okay." I upgraded the tickets, another $2,000 gone. Joyce called the next morning, gushing about Owen's latest sales bonus, how he'd charmed a big client. "He's always been the charismatic one," she said. I swallowed my irritation, remembering how she'd paid for his college textbooks while I worked part-time to cover mine. Mark texted that afternoon, a rare message. "Thanks for handling this." His words felt hollow, especially when Joyce followed up with an email requesting a private dining room at the hotel. "Owen's family needs space to relax," she wrote. I wired $500, my fingers trembling as I clicked send. At work, I mentioned the trip to a colleague, Sarah, who raised an eyebrow. "You're paying for everyone?" she asked. I nodded, brushing off her concern, but her words lingered. Marissa called one night, her voice sugary but firm, suggesting a luxury rental car for the group. "It's only a few hundred more," she said. I agreed, though my budget screamed. I cut back on my own expenses, skipping coffee runs, canceling a gym membership to make it work. Joyce sent another email asking for VIP lounge access at the airport for $700. I added it, my chest heavy with the weight of their expectations. I kept planning booking a dinner show, a poolside cabana, even a guided tour of the Strip. Every request felt like a test of my loyalty, and I kept passing it, driven by the hope of a family reunited. But late at night, staring at my dwindling balance, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was carrying this alone. 6 hours before my world turned upside down, I wheeled my carry-on through O'Hare International in Chicago, my boarding pass tucked in my pocket. 6 weeks of planning every flight, hotel suite, and tour to Las Vegas paid from my savings had me practically vibrating with excitement. I pictured us boarding together, swapping stories over drinks, maybe even recapturing the closeness we'd lost. I arrived early, double-checking our group's tickets at the counter. A clerk named Emma scanned my ID, her smile warm as she confirmed my seat to Las Vegas. I texted Joyce, letting her know I was at gate C-17 ready to meet them. No response came, but I shrugged it off, assuming they were stuck at security. I lingered near the gate, scanning the crowd for familiar faces, my heart light with hope. My phone buzzed as I adjusted my bag. A text from Joyce flashed across the screen. "We all voted that you should stay." My breath caught, my fingers frozen over the words. I read it again, my hands trembling, certain it was a typo. I scrolled through our group chat, searching for a follow-up, an apology, anything but. It was just that one cold sentence. I called Joyce, my pulse hammering. "What does this mean?" I asked, my voice cracking. "You're too controlling." My mother snapped, her tone sharp as glass. "We decided it's better without you." I pressed for an explanation, but she cut me off, saying they were boarding. The line went dead. I stumbled to the gate's glass window, my legs unsteady. There they were, Joyce, Mark, Owen, and Marissa, handing their tickets to the agent headed for first-class seats I'd paid for. Joyce's scarf fluttered as she walked, Owen's leather jacket glinted under the lights, Marissa's designer purse swung at her side. A second text arrived from Owen. "You make things complicated. This is our plan now." Complicated. I'd spent $25,000 on their vacation. I watched them stride down the jetway, not one glance back, my chest tightening with every step they took. I dialed Joyce again, my fingers shaking. "How could you do this?" I pleaded. "We just need a break from your micromanaging," my mother said, her voice dripping with dismissal. She hung up before I could respond. I called Owen next, my heart pounding. "Stop making a scene." He barked, his tone laced with arrogance. "You're not part of this anymore." I begged for a reason, but he scoffed, a sharp cutting sound, and ended the call. Marissa ignored my text. Mark, as always, stayed silent. I sank onto a bench by the gate. My boarding pass crumpled in my fist, the airport's noise fading to a dull hum. Alone, I replayed their words, each one a knife twisting deeper. This wasn't the first time they'd left me behind. When I was 12, they'd forgotten me at a supermarket, too busy getting Owen to soccer practice. But this was calculated, a betrayal carved with intent. I'd poured my savings, my energy, my heart into this trip, only for them to erase me. My anger surged, mingling with a raw, aching hurt. I stared at their texts, the words searing into me, and felt a shift inside. I wasn't going to beg or break. I was done being their afterthought. Back in my Chicago apartment, the silence of my living room felt heavier than the airport's hum. I opened my banking app, still reeling from the morning's betrayal, and scrolled through my account. My heart sank. New charges from Las Vegas, $3,000 at a casino, $1,500 at a steakhouse, another $1,000 at a luxury spa. My credit card, the one I'd given Joyce for emergencies, was bleeding. I called the bank, my voice tight, and a rep named Clara confirmed the charges were made today, linked to my family's hotel. I stared at the numbers, my anger flaring. They'd left me behind, and now they were spending my money like it was theirs. My phone rang, shattering the quiet. It was my Aunt Gloria, her voice low and urgent. "Leah, there's something you need to know," she said. She revealed that Joyce and Mark had inherited $750,000 from my grandparents' estate years ago, money they'd kept secret. Most of it went to Owen, paying off his debts, covering his mortgage, even funding his wedding. "They always put him first," Gloria said, her tone bitter. I gripped the phone, my mind racing. The betrayal cut deeper, knowing they'd hidden a fortune while I bankrolled their vacation. I thanked Gloria, my voice barely steady, and hung up, the weight of her words settling in. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. My friend Kate Walsh stood there, her eyes soft with concern. I poured out the story, the airport, the texts, the charges. Kate listened, her hand on mine, and urged me to stop letting them walk over me. "You're stronger than this," she said, her voice firm. "Don't let them break you." Her words sparked something in me, a flicker of resolve amid the hurt. We sat on my couch, her presence a quiet anchor, and I felt a shift. I wasn't alone in this fight. As Kate left, memories flooded back. Years ago, I'd paid Owen's rent $2,000 when he was between jobs, only for him to buy a new TV the next week. I'd covered Joyce's electric bills, $800 over months, when she claimed they were struggling. Each time I'd swallowed my frustration, hoping it would earn their loyalty, but it never did. Those moments, stark and vivid, mirrored today's betrayal. I'd been their safety net, and they'd cut me loose without a thought. My phone buzzed again, my cousin Sean calling from across town. "I heard what happened," he said, his voice sharp with anger. "They can't keep doing this to you." He pushed me to act, to demand what was mine, maybe even talk to a lawyer. "You've given enough," he said. "It's time to fight back." His words echoed Kate's, fueling the fire in my chest. I hung up, staring at my empty apartment, the sting of their actions sharper than ever. I wasn't just hurt, I was ready to make them face me. The next morning, I opened my laptop with a coffee in hand. My apartment was quiet, but my mind was a storm of resolve. I pulled up every receipt from the Las Vegas trip, 5 round-trip tickets costing $8,000, 2 hotel suites at $10,000, a helicopter tour for $3,000, and a Cirque du Soleil show for $2,000. I dug through my email, finding Owen's message from 2 years ago, promising to repay the $10,000 he borrowed for his Mustang. My fingers trembled as I organized the files, each one a reminder of how much I'd given. I cross-checked bank statements, noting the charges they'd racked up in Las Vegas casino bets, lavish dinners, spa treatments. My anger surged, but I channeled it into focus-saving screenshots of every transaction. This wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I called a lawyer named Rachel Bennett, recommended by a colleague. Her voice was calm, professional, as I explained the trip, the betrayal, and the unauthorized charges. I wanted a formal agreement demanding $35,000, $10,000 for Owen's debt, $25,000 for the trip, and extra charges. Rachel outlined the process, suggesting a demand letter to start. We spent an hour refining details, calculating interest on Owen's loan, and documenting my payments. I felt a surge of confidence, knowing I was building a case. By noon, she emailed a draft agreement, clear and airtight, ready to send to my family. I opened my email and typed a message to Joyce, Mark, and Owen. My words were sharp, listing every expense: $8,000 for flights, $10,000 for rooms, $3,000 for the casino, $1,500 for the steakhouse, and Owen's unpaid $10,000. I attached receipts, bank statements, and his old email, laying out the evidence in cold, hard numbers. My hands shook as I typed, but I kept my tone firm, professional. They'd taken enough from me, and I wasn't begging anymore. I reread the email, ensuring every detail was correct, then hit send, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and defiance. In the email, I made my stance clear: pay the $35,000 within 30 days, or I'd pursue legal action. I stated I'd no longer fund their lifestyle, no more loans, no more favors. For the first time, I set a boundary, cutting through years of their manipulation. The words felt like armor shielding me from their dismissals. I imagined Joyce's face reading it, Owen's smug grin fading, Mark's usual silence broken. The thought of them facing consequences sparked a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I saved a copy of the email, knowing it was a line drawn in the sand. Sean stopped by that afternoon, a stack of legal documents in hand. He'd offered to review the lawyer's draft, his experience with contracts proving invaluable. We sat at my kitchen table, poring over every clause. He caught a small error in the repayment timeline, suggesting a tighter deadline to pressure them. "This is solid," he said, his voice steady. "You're doing the right thing." His support grounded me, turning my resolve into steel. As he left, I felt a clarity I'd never had before. They'd underestimated me, but I was ready to fight. 3 days later, my inbox was flooded with messages. I sat in my Chicago apartment, the glow of my phone revealing a notification from Facebook. Owen had posted a long rant calling me greedy and selfish, accusing me of tearing the family apart over money. He claimed I'd always been jealous of his success, twisting my demand for repayment into a personal attack. My stomach churned as I read the comments, distant cousins and family friends piling on, unaware of the truth. I wanted to scream, to reply with every receipt and email, but I held back, my hands shaking. Instead, I scrolled through his post again, noting how he'd conveniently left out the $10,000 he owed me, the trip I'd funded. My anger burned, but I knew reacting impulsively would weaken my case. A letter arrived that afternoon, slipped under my door. It was from Joyce, her handwriting neat, but her words dripping with guilt. "You're breaking our family," my mother wrote, claiming my legal threats were selfish, that I should forgive for the sake of unity. She mentioned her sacrifices, how she'd raised me through tough times, as if that erased her betrayal. I read it twice, my jaw tight, feeling the familiar tug of guilt she always wielded. But this time, I didn't waver. I tossed the letter on the counter, my resolve hardening. Her words were a tactic, not an apology, and I wasn't falling for it again. I called my lawyer, Rachel Bennett, to draft a second legal letter. We reviewed the evidence. Gloria had sent a scanned copy of my grandparents' will, proving Joyce and Mark hid $750,000, most of it funneled to Owen. I added this to the letter, demanding they acknowledge the inheritance alongside the $35,000. My tone was sharp, unyielding, listing every expense they'd ignored: flights, hotels, casino charges. Rachel polished the draft, ensuring it was legally sound, and I emailed it to Joyce, Mark, and Owen, attaching the will. My heart raced as I hit send, but it was a good kind of fear, the kind that comes with standing your ground. That evening, my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Mark standing on my porch, his face drawn, asking to talk. "We can fix this," my father said, his voice muffled through the speaker. I stayed behind the locked door, my finger hovering over the intercom. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied, my voice steady. He pleaded, mentioning family loyalty, but I cut him off, refusing to let him in. Watching him walk away, shoulders slumped, I felt a pang of sadness but no regret. I'd spent years opening my door to them, only to be used. That ended now. Kate arrived the next morning, her laptop ready. She'd seen Owen's post and urged me to save it before he deleted it. We sat at my dining table, her fingers flying as she showed me how to screenshot every comment, every share, archiving them as evidence for my lawyer. "This could help in court," Kate said, her voice calm but firm. Her help felt like a lifeline, grounding me in the chaos. As we saved the files, I realized I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for the truth. My family's lies wouldn't define me anymore. 2 weeks later, a bank alert lit up my phone. My lawyer, Rachel, called to confirm the news. Joyce, Mark, and Owen had agreed to pay $35,000 through a legal mediation session. The money hit my account that morning, a transfer split into 3 payments covering the trip, the casino charges, and Owen's old debt. I stared at the balance, my chest loosening for the first time in months. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about accountability. Rachel said they'd sign the agreement under pressure, knowing my evidence, the receipts, the will was ironclad. I thanked her, my voice steady, but I felt no urge to celebrate. They'd paid, but the trust they'd shattered couldn't be bought back. I saved the confirmation email, a quiet reminder of the line I'd drawn. Word spread fast about Owen's financial mess. His Facebook post, the one calling me greedy, had backfired. A local news blog picked it up, exposing his unpaid debts and lavish spending. His boss at the car dealership saw it, and by the end of the week, Owen was out of a job. I heard this from a mutual acquaintance, not from him. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction his lies had caught up with him. But I didn't revel in it. I'd spent too long cleaning up his messes to take joy in his downfall. His choices, not mine, had led him here. I scrolled past his profile, now silent, and moved on. Gloria called me that weekend, her voice heavy. Joyce and Mark had sold their Cadillac and a small plot of land from the family estate to cover their share of the debt. Without the hidden inheritance they'd squandered on Owen, they were struggling, downsizing their home cutting expenses. My aunt didn't sugarcoat it, they were barely scraping by. I listened, my heart caught between justice and a flicker of sorrow. They'd chosen to protect Owen over me, to hide $750,000 while I paid their way. Their hardship was their own making, yet the weight of it lingered. I thanked Gloria for the update, my tone calm, and hung up, closing that chapter. I blocked Joyce's number, Mark's email, and Owen's messages the next day. No more guilt trips, no more excuses. I was done being their fallback. Instead, I turned to Sean, my cousin, who'd stood by me through it all. We met for coffee, planning a small business project, a bookstore we'd dreamed about for years. His laughter, his ideas filled a space my family had left empty. I felt lighter, unburdened as we sketched out our vision on napkins. Cutting them off wasn't just about distance. It was about choosing a life where I wasn't an afterthought. Sean's support reminded me I deserved that. With the $35,000, I opened a savings account, earmarking it for my future. I met with a financial advisor, mapping out investments, safe, steady ones, to build security. Every step felt like a brick laid in a new foundation, one I controlled. I wasn't just saving money. I was claiming my independence piece by piece. The process was quiet, methodical, but it filled me with a pride I hadn't known in years. I looked at my apartment, my plans, and saw a life I was building for myself, not for them. Looking back, I learned to set boundaries, to protect myself from those who'd take until I had nothing left. My family saw me as a resource, not a person, but I stopped letting their choices define me. Standing up for myself wasn't easy, but it was worth it. To anyone listening, thank you for following my story. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to draw a line with family? Share below, and let's talk about what it means to put yourself first.